Why wasn't a Palestinian state created alongside Israel by the United Nations in 1948?
Yeah, very
Thank you
good
for the
question.
question. It's a good question, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, the United Nations, you have to go a little bit in history to understand it. Britain ruled Palestine until the beginning of 1947. And in the beginning of 1947, it decided that it had enough of Palestine and referred the future of Palestine to the United Nations. The United Nations at the time was a very young organization. None of the colonized world was represented apart from one country, Liberia, in the United Nations. So it was still the West that actually equates the United Nations. And they were sitting and deciding what is the best future for Palestine. And the Palestinians were told by the United Nations that they would give credence both to the position of the Palestinians and the positions to the Zionist movement. And from a Palestinian perspective, the idea that the colonizers of their country, most of them, by the way, arrived 2-3 years earlier, has the same status as they about the future of the country was unacceptable. The Palestinian delegation, not delegation, the Palestinians who were interlocutors with the United Nations at the time said to them, would you ask the Algerians to partition Algeria to a French Algeria and Algeria as part of decolonization? This was unacceptable to the Palestinians, that the Jews, who were 1/3 of the population, the vast majority of them arrived after 2-3 years earlier, who had an ideology that did not recognize the right of the indigenous people for their own homeland, that they should be equal partners. So the Palestinians totally rejected the partition. What the Palestinians, by the way, from the very beginning of the arrival of Zionism, from the very beginning, what the Palestinians demanded from the United Nations, and some member states of the United Nations even accepted, is that the West would be loyal to the two principles. It insisted that the Arab world was too primitive to understand, and only with the guidance of the West it would be promoted to a higher level of civilization. The principle of democracy and the principle of self-determination. So the Palestinians said, okay, let's have a democratic election in historical Palestine, and let's have self-determination to the Palestinians as we're giving to the Iraqis, the Syrians, the Lebanese, and the Jordanians. To my mind, this was a very reasonable Palestinian position. And that's why the United Nations did offer to give the Palestinian, by the way, less than half of Palestine, and most of it without the major natural resources in it. And the Palestinian rejected it and said, we want a democratic Palestine, a self-determination. And the United Nations said, take it or leave it. And that the leave it meant we will allow the Zionist movement to take over Palestine if you reject our proposal. So I think that from the very beginning, the idea of giving half of Palestine to 1/3 of the population, most of them settlers with ideology of unsettling the indigenous people, was the main reason why the Palestinians did not collaborate with the United Nations, rejected the idea, and that gave an excuse to the Zionist movement to begin the ethnic cleansing of Palestine by saying the Palestinians rejected the proposal of the United Nations, so we have the right by force to take as much of Palestine as possible and expel as many Palestinians as possible.